Suppose you go back to an example I gave last time. You're sharing a house with someone who you find quite alien. You don't know, you don't understand what's going on with this person. Are they happy? Are they sad? You can't get an imaginative understanding of what's going in there. So then you say, well, I can find out about this person's brain. I took a scanner home with me. I can get every physical fact about this person's brain. I can predict what he's going to do. Look in the scanner. Look at the laws governing the brain. Now he's going to go and make coffee. Now he's going to go out of the front door. Now he's going to do this. You can predict every movement that person's going to make. If you had enough computing power, if you were fast enough, you could scan this person well enough, you could predict every physical movement that they're going to make using the scanner. So you just are exploiting the physics of this person to predict every single thing that they're going to do. Do you, as yet, know anything about this person's mind? You don't know the first thing. You don't know why they're doing any of that. In the chemistry-physics case, once you got the physics, you got the whole lot. You don't need anything else. But in this case, in the case of the mind and the brain, you can have the whole physical story, and the mind can still be a complete mystery to you. Just one second. Just one other example. Suppose that there is a just suppose there is a politician you admire. There is someone you think, she does great work. And then they do something that just seems like a disastrous mistake. And you think, why did you do that? And then your friend in biochemistry says, actually, we have had her scanned for ages. We knew everything about the firing of cell assemblies in her brain. We could predict that she was going to do that. That doesn't answer your question. You wanted to know why that catastrophic mistake seemed like a good idea. You haven't understood anything as yet about why she did that. So what I'm suggesting is that you don't give deeper explanations by saying things like pain is C-fiber firing or anger is activity in the amygdala, a part of the brain. You're not helping. You don't get any deeper explanations. When Barack Obama said, it's important to see the world through the eyes of those who are different from us, the child who's hungry, the steel worker who's been laid off, the family who lost the entire life they built together when the storm came to town. When you think like this, when you choose to broaden your ambit of concern and empathize with the plight of others, as I said, that's the only guide you have as to how to behave with other people. When you empathize with the plight of others, whether they're close friends or distant strangers, it becomes harder not to act, not to help. If this kind of picture was right, then Obama would have been wrong. Because really, who cares about empathy if you can just scan people? That should give you the deep explanations as to what's going on with them. And that should tell you how to behave. But the fact is, the brain scans tell you nothing. The explanatory things you want to know about from the point of view of how should I behave with these people, these are all made available to you only through your imaginative understanding of them. It's only you're being able to get into their perspective, imagine how the world is for them, that is telling you what to do. So you can't deepen those mentalistic explanations by going to the level of the brain. Okay, there were a couple of questions. One. Yes? No? Sorry? Uh-huh. Okay. Plain as day? Okay. Okay, so let's look at what Nagel does. Nagel's point in this article is really a way of making this kind of thing very, very vivid. Here's a quote from the article. If the subjective character of experience is fully comprehensible only from one point of view, if the subjective character of experience of what's going on in your mind is fully comprehensible only from one point of view, then any shift to greater objectivity, that is less attachment to a specific viewpoint, does not take us nearer to the real nature of the phenomenon. It takes us further away from it. So think about that for a second. If you think about pain, physical pain is bad. If you see someone in physical pain, then you want to help, by and large. But understanding why that is, why should you care about pain? You can only care about pain because you have an empathetic or imaginative understanding of what that's like. It's only your imaginative understanding of it that can engage your emotional reactions to the pain, that can make you act with respect to the pain. If you're told, well, the pain is C-fiber firing, that doesn't tell you, oh, now I understand why I care about pain, because it's C-fiber firing. C-fiber firing is awful. No one in their senses thinks like that, right? You'd have to be some kind of psychopath, some kind of sociopath to be thinking like that. No one cares about C-fiber firing for its own sake. The only reason you would care about C-fiber firing is you think, oh, that means they're in pain. I can imagine what that's like. So the key thing in Nagel's remarks here, and these are very important, resonant remarks, the subjective character of experience, what makes pain the thing it is fully comprehensible. You only get what pain is by thinking about what pain is like from that point of view. So if you try and have an objective scientific understanding of it, that's not going to tell you more about what pain is. It just loses the subject. Pain is essentially pain for a person, for a point of view. In the case of boiling, when water's boiling, you find out what the real nature of that phenomenon is by giving a scientific account. The science tells you what's going on when water's boiling, or the bonds between these molecules are loosening. That's a scientific account. Now you understand boiling much better. You don't understand pain any better at all by being told it's C-fiber firing. You just stop talking about the pain. At present, we are completely unequipped to think about the subjective character of experience without relying on imagination, without taking up the point of view of the experiential subject. And the key term there is imagination. So this is just talking through what it means to be conscious. What is it? Well, I mean, humans are conscious, octopuses are conscious, I guess bricks and computers are not conscious. But what's the difference? Well, the fact that an organism has conscious experience at all means that there's something it is like to be that organism. An organism has conscious mental states if and only if there's something it's like to be that organism, something it's like for the organism. And then I mentioned last night, last time we talked, that bats are such strange creatures. Bats are such alien creatures to us. Presumably bats are conscious. They seem like they're conscious. But as he says, anyone who's spent some time in an enclosed space with an excited bat, he's clearly had some bitter experience here, trapped in a barn with a bat. You know, if that's happened to you, what it's like to encounter a fundamentally alien form of life. If I try to imagine what it's like for a bat to be a bat, I'm restricted to the resources of my own mind. and those resources are inadequate to the task. And if you think about the way bats work, is they have a kind of radar. They send out pulses of sound to the vicinity, and they listen for the reflections of those sounds coming back. But it's pretty weird because the burst of sound they send out has to be very loud in order to get enough reflections coming back. And their hearing has to be very acute in order to catch the reflections. Right? You following me? So if they just sent out a loud burst of sound with their hearing full on, they would deafen themselves every time. Right? Because that initial pulse has to be very loud. So what they have to do is switch off their hearing, send out the pulse, and then immediately amp up the hearing to get the return coming back. And what they're trying to do is to catch moving insects. They're trying to catch insects on the fly. So they've got to be doing this very fast. They send out the pulse, switch on the hearing, shut down the hearing, send out another pulse, shut down the hearing, and so on. And they've also got to watch for other bats, because the other bats can jam them by the pulses they're sending out. And as you know, bats, you often see whole stacks of bats squealing about. So what's that like? Can you imagine that? What kind of sensory experience is the bat having? All this is happening so quickly. It's got to get flying insects, which are really hard to catch. In contrast, the kind of imaginative understanding that you or I can have right now, if I try and imagine what the room looks like from your perspective, or you try and imagine what the room looks like from my perspective, that's easy. We take that for granted. The point about thinking about bats is that you suddenly realize there's something that we are doing with each other the whole time that you just can't do with a bat. To the extent that I can look or behave like a wasp or a bat without changing my fundamental structure, my experience is, you can dress up like a bat, right? If you really get into the groove here, you could try strapping on the costume and so on, but you could try opening and shutting your eyes pretty fast. It's really not going to help. You're not going to be there with a bat conscious life. Or you might say, well, it's not enough I put on a costume, right? What I have to do is take out my brain and put in a bat brain. And then I could do it, right? Then I could imagine what it's like to be a bat. But of course, presumably if I took out your brain and replaced it with a bat brain and said, well, now you know what it's like to be a bat. Well, I just have generated, I'd have killed you, I guess. And what I've got is not really a bat. What I'd have is, well, I don't wish to be rude, but some kind of monster here, right? So Nagel says it's doubtful that any meaning can be attached to the supposition that I should possess the internal neurophysiological constitution of a bat. You just can't do it. You can't get inside the bat head. So there are limits to what you can imagine. And in a way, we all know that anyhow. If you meet people you don't know very well, if you meet people you don't like very well, sometimes you find it difficult to get into their heads. The bat is just a kind of limit of that, where you can't get into its head at all. Yeah.